Dear students, myself Diksha Bhatt, teacher trainee from Nirmala Institute of Education. Let's start with your science class. Let us begin this chapter with a story. Arav lived in a village called Sajjanpur. One day he decided to travel to a nearby town called Somnagar to meet his friend Tushar. Arav started riding his bicycle on the dry mud road next to his house. Soon after that, he reached a bumpy road with lots of big stones on the way. Finally, when Arav was about to reach Tushar's house, he found it very difficult to balance his cycle on the road that was covered with thick layer of sand. Which road Arav would have found it difficult to ride his bicycle? Arav would have found it difficult to ride his bicycle on the road with many big stones. He would have also found it difficult to ride his bicycle on the road with a loose sand on it. On which road Arav would have found it easier to ride his bicycle? Arav would have also found it easier to ride his bicycle on the road with a loose sand on it. Let us consider one more example. Observe the movement of ball. You will observe that ball stops down after covering some distance and finally stops rolling and comes to the stop. What is the force that opposes the motion of a ball called? This force is called as friction. You saw that if you apply the force along the left, then friction acts along the right, and if force is applied along the right, then friction acts along the left. So basically, friction is the force that acts against the motion of an object, or we can say that friction is the resistance to the motion of an object moving over another surface. Friction always acts between two surfaces. Friction is caused by the irregularities present on the two surfaces in contact with each other. Arav found it difficult to ride his bicycle on the road with many big stones on it. This is because the friction is more on rough surfaces. Whereas Arav found it easier to ride his bicycle on the road with a loose sand on it, which is because the friction is less on smooth surfaces. Now let us see what are surface irregularities. All surfaces have some irregularities. Irregularities present on the two surfaces lock into one another, so when we attempt to move an object over a surface, we have to apply a force to overcome these interlockings. On the rough surfaces, there are large number of irregularities. Therefore, force of friction is greater if the rough surface is involved, whereas on smooth surfaces, we have minute irregularities on them. Therefore, the force of friction is little less in case of smooth surfaces. Hence, more force is required to overcome friction on rough surfaces as compared to smooth surfaces. To move a stationary object, you have to apply a force. As you apply a continuously increasing force to the stationary object, the force of friction also increases. The force of friction between two or more solid objects which are not moving relative to each other is called static friction. As you apply more force, there comes a point when the object starts moving. At this point, the static friction is maximum. Once the box starts moving, it is easier to slide. This is because, relative to the floor, the box is moving and the irregularities of the box and the floor do not get enough time to lock into each other. Now, the friction which is produced between the surface and the object sliding over it is called sliding friction. Moving a box kept on the stand with wheels is much easier as the wheels roll over the surface of the floor. Friction which is produced between the rolling object and the surface is called rolling friction. It is easy to observe that the force required to start the motion of an object is greater than the force required to continuously keep an object in motion. Thus, it is justified to say that sliding friction is less than static friction. Also, rolling an object is easier than sliding it. Hence, rolling friction is less than sliding friction. Examples of the objects at rest that experience a static friction are cupboard, bench, bed, table, chair, etc. A child sliding down through a slide, ironing of clothes, mopping of floor, or any motion where there is a contact between an object and a surface is an example of sliding friction. Football, truck tires, wheels, ball bearings, car tire are all the examples of the objects experiencing rolling friction. I hope, dear students, you have got a clear idea of the topics which I have covered today. This brings us to the end of the first part of this chapter. If you have any difficulties, then you may contact me. Thank you.